Well, hello and welcome to the Terry Cole Show. I am so excited that you are joining me today. It is a super special episode for those of you who've been following along with Boundary Palooza and all things healthy boundaries that I've been talking about for the last 6 weeks. Today is the last day. If you are interested in joining my Boundary Bootcamp 2019, today the doors are closing for another year. Ladies, it is only for women. If you want to do it, go to terrycole.com/BB2019. All the info will be in the show notes, obviously, and on YouTube and wherever you're watching this. But I just don't want you to miss it because last year we had so many people saying, I can't believe I missed it. And when are you doing it again? And I'm like, it's just like your birthday. It comes around once a year because I couldn't possibly deliver this course twice a year. Way too much. So if you want to breeze on into 2020 like the boundary boss that you know you're meant to be, this is your chance, ladies. I don't want you to have any regrets about not doing it. Anyway, let's talk about what we're talking about today because I'm really getting into the nitty-gritty of what are the things that truly get in the way of us having excellent boundaries. So I've talked about tons of things up until this point, but I really got down to the hidden ones, the ones that are really hard to identify. And I've identified what I think are the top 4 hidden boundary killers. We're revealing them right here, right now, in this episode of the Terry Cole Show. Pretty exciting. So let's start with, well, listen, I don't think you need me to start with why boundaries, right? You understand why you need them. You know what they are, right? They're actually the only path to real empowerment. So when I talk about having healthy boundaries, I'm not just talking about having any boundaries. I'm talking about you having healthy boundaries that are flexible, that are not too rigid, that are not too flexible, right? The just right boundaries, which is really what assertiveness is. But what this creates when you understand what boundaries are, know yourself, understand why you've been relating to boundaries the way that you have, which of course is exactly what I teach in the course, you learn what is your downloaded, this unconscious material that was put there basically by our family of origin when we were growing up. I mean, this is what we learned from our families, no offense. We all did, right? And some people maybe had boundary bosses as parents, but I doubt it, and I definitely did not. So you have the boundary part of this, but then you also have the effective communication piece. And a lot of what I'm going to be teaching you today about this is about the communication piece, where when our communication is faulty or disordered or out of balance, that then impacts it doesn't just create a messed up boundary, it impacts our ability to be fully present in our relationships and in our lives, and also for us to actually be empowered. Because there's so much that goes on that is confusing. Because if you don't get this stuff from the unconscious mind and bring it up to the main part of the mind, you feel a certain way, but you don't know why. It looks like it's about this thing that you're experiencing right now, but many times it isn't. So the historical information and understanding your downloaded boundary blueprint is so crucial. And for me, how I teach it in the course is that's the first few weeks. So it's basically an 8-week coaching course where the first half is going back in time, where we collect all the stuff that you never understood, why you felt the way you do, whatever. And then we move into new concepts and new skills and new strategies for you to get your needs met, become empowered, say what's on your mind in a real way. So, moving into today's, what I think are the 4 top silent boundary killers, let's reveal number 1. Well, let's talk about the pregnant pause in a conversation. Do you fill the pregnant pause? And I know so many of you are going to say yes, because it is, in a way, it's human nature. But in a lot of ways, it's really human nature for women, especially if we feel like we have the disease to please, or if we feel like it's uncomfortable, to just let the silence be there. So, filling the pregnant pause, what happens when you do that? Well, you are building a wall of words between you and someone else. So does that mean that you are creating intimacy, or that they really know you, or that you really know them? Not usually. Because filling a pregnant pause in a conversation, and for those of you, if this is an American phrase, and I know many of you are not in the US, it's a phrase, a colloquialism that means that when there's a lull in the conversation, when silence is between you and someone else, especially if you don't know them well, that you feel compelled, like a compulsive desire to talk, so that there won't be what would be considered an uncomfortable silence. My thought is this. This is a compulsive behavioral thing. It's something that is learned. And when I think about a pregnant pause, it's pregnant with possibility if you allow it to exist. Because what you'll find, and what so many women who've been through my course have told me that they've experienced in their life, is that when they stopped so quickly and compulsively filling the silence, what happened was the other people in their life started talking more, started revealing things. In a business situation, allowing the silence provoked the other person to reveal something, to share something that they definitely would not have if that person had continued compulsively filling that gap. So imagine how your life might change if you stop doing this silent boundary killer. And because what does it do? It blocks. It's actually a block to communication, as opposed to a bridge. So when we have ordered boundaries, when we have balanced boundaries, when our boundaries are actually working for us and not against us because we have figured it out, then your communication is effective. Then you feel heard in your life, you feel seen in your life. But that won't happen if you're literally working against your own good in an unconscious way that you're not even aware of. So much of what I teach on this publicly and in the Boundary Bootcamp 8-week coaching course is how to raise your awareness. That is always the first pillar of transformation. In everything I teach, there's 5 pillars. The first one is raising your awareness, because how can we possibly change anything that we are not aware of, or that we're in denial of, that we're suppressing, that we're avoiding? Well, we can't. We have to be aware of it. It has to be in your conscious mind, and then you can do something to change it. Make sense? So instead of filling the pregnant pause, allow the pause to create all kinds of possibility. That's what we want to do, because you might learn something. What if you allowed the other person to expand? Have you ever had a conversation with someone, and I actually don't like talking to people who do this anymore, where there's no space for creativity? Because before I even get out what I'm saying, the other person is relating it back to themselves, or giving me some unasked for advice, or telling me why they would have done it differently. And I'm like, why so many words? Why we gotta have so many words between us? Rather than just, there's something very intimate and awesome for me about being with someone, if it's on my team, someone I'm brainstorming with, where we can just have expansion. Let's just think about that thing we're brainstorming. Or maybe just not talk. And I know for a lot of you, in really intimate relationships, you're not doing this, right? In your closest relationships. For a lot of people with the disease to please, a lot of women in particular, it's more like work situations or social situations, but that you actually can have a comfortable silence in your romantic relationship. And for some people, they're always uncomfortable if there's silence. And if that's you, I want you to really try this on until it fits, because it's a very powerful intervention to change the way that you're probably blocking communication in your relationship right now. Allow the space. Do not say anything. Breathe. Get out your lavender oil. Do something that will make you feel more calm in the moment. But don't abandon yourself by getting in the way of the intimacy that you could be creating, the effective communication you could be sharing with someone that would deepen your relationship with them, you know? Okay, moving into the second thing. The second biggest silent, basically is this hidden boundary killer, is not saying what you mean. Is basically saying, instead, when you have to get off the phone, do you ever say to the other person, I'll let you go now? Anybody, raise your hand. I can't see you, podcast people, but I know you're raising your hand because people do it all the time. So I've taken up enough of your time trying to be polite, but it's not the truth. And you can feel that. I was with a friend the other day. I was telling this story on one of the live streams that I was with a friend the other day, and she was talking to her sister, and we needed to go do something. And I heard her getting off the phone and saying, all right, I'm going to let you go now. I've taken up enough of your time, so I'm going to go and let you go to do what you need to do. And when she got off, I go, did your sister need to get off the phone? She was like, no. I go, so why did you say you were letting her go when you were getting off the phone because you needed to go? Oh, I don't know. I was like, okay, but do you see how when we don't say what we mean, like you didn't just say what you actually meant, that people feel that? Like I guarantee you, your sister felt weird. Because when people do it to me, I feel so manipulated. I get so pissed off. I hate it. Listen, if you just fucking say what it is you're saying. I don't mind if you have to go. I'm not mad if you have to go. You know what I'm mad about? You saying you're going to let me go when the truth is I don't need to go. There's something for me, it resonates in a really not good way. And maybe because I am a boundary boss at this point in my life. And it's so obvious. But actually, my friend called her sister later that night and said, Terry pointed something out to me and I noted that I did this thing. And I'm sorry, what I should have said before is, I need to go. It's been great talking to you. I'll call you on Sunday or whatever. And her sister was like, oh my God, that's so weird. And I'm so glad that you called back because I have to say, I got off and it felt weird. Like, why is she saying I have to go? I don't have to go. And it's okay if she is to go. But they ended up then having this whole conversation about wanting to have a better relationship where there's more direct, honest, authentic communication. Why do we treat each other like we're so effing fragile? Like, you're not that fragile, and neither are the people in your life. And you're not doing it for them. You're really doing it for you. You're doing it so you're more comfortable. But the thing is, it isn't the truth. And that's just one example. Other ones are when you're pissed off. I used to have a client that would come in and say, well, so Bob did this again for like the 99th time and whatever. Listen, it's fine. It's fine. And I was like, dude, stop saying it's fine. You're telling me about it like it's a problem. You know what it's not? Fine. And every time you're literally getting in the way of your ability to get your needs met by immediately negating what they did by saying it's fine. It's fine if that's the way he wants to be. Oh, but is it fine, really, Brenda? Because you're coming in here complaining about it week to week, so it's not fine. Stop normalizing it and friggin' say what it is you want to say. At least to me, I was her therapist. I was like, listen, you don't want to confront Bob, then don't. But don't come in here and sell me that crock of shit, because I know that's not true. And I wanted her to raise her awareness about what she was saying. We learned this. And I mean, with that client, we finally got to that that's the way her mother handled shit. She was like one of those futile complainers, which we're going to get to that on my list. You know, those people who, they complain, but then they won't let you fucking change whatever the problem was. So they're like, it's fine now. It's fine. But they don't look like it's fine. They don't sound like it's fine. I just wanted to let you know that I'm pissed off, but I'm not going to let you do anything to change it. Okay, well, that seems counterproductive to me. And it also pisses other people off because you feel it's such a damned if you do and damned if you don't situation. So instead of not saying what you mean by telling the other person they have to get off the phone because they have to go and you're doing them a favor basically, or by saying shit is okay when you know that it isn't, learn to talk straight. Because here's the thing. These encrypted messages that we send that we think we're being super clear, but we're not. They're like so not clear. We send the encrypted message with no key for someone to be able to decode what the hell it is we even are saying. They don't even know what we're saying. But here's the thing. When we leave it to other people to read between the lines, to when we say any normal person would have known that that's what they should have done. No, those are all excuses for you not to speak up and say what it is that's on your mind. So your job is to say it. Whether it's, hey, I need to go because Terry and I are walking out the door, but I will call you back. Or saying to Bob, hey man, not fine what you're doing because I've gone into therapy for the last 3 weeks complaining about it. So, hey, P.S., not fine. Please stop doing that. I'd like to make a simple request. And then you get into your boundary language. This is such an important part because it's not just for you. We do this for the people in our life that we actually love so they can stop effing guessing and getting it wrong because they're just going to keep getting it wrong. Because when people try to figure out what you're saying with your actions and your no words and you're being withdrawn in anger and all that shit, what they end up doing is projecting how they would feel. So every person naturally, unless you've had a lot of therapy or unless you're a therapist, they're doing it through their lens, right, of their life. So they're like, oh yeah, I know exactly how she feels, like this. I want to be like, you have no idea how she feels. So no, that's not it. And if she would just tell you, then you could stop guessing and getting it wrong. Wouldn't that be amazing? And wouldn't it be amazing for you to stop feeling misunderstood? You're misunderstood because you are unclear probably at least half the time. So that's boundary killer number 2 revealed. The third thing is misnaming emotions. Can we stop saying, I was really annoyed, to soften the emotion when what you want to say is I was homicidal? They're not the same feeling. And I had a friend who used to always do this. She would always be complaining about shit all the time. And she was so enraged so much of the time. And her face would get beet red and she would get twisted up. And it was like kind of scary. And she was like, well, I was so annoyed, or I was kind of annoyed. She would always use the word annoyed. And I would always be like, Jody, stop saying annoyed when you mean enraged. When you felt homicidal, when you felt like punching someone, that is not annoyance. That's a different feeling. That is anger, rage. They're not the same. And what I'm feeling from you when you're using the word annoyed is rage. So not to be an empath, but can you please stop? Because it is so stressful. Or just say what it is. Because to me, people talking in code, meta messages, I can't stand it. Because I am also seeing the actual message because of what I do for a living. So I'm like, stop saying annoyed when that's not what you mean. Vic used to do this thing years ago when he was annoyed about something. He would say he thought he would use these 2 words, and this made me crazy. He does not do it anymore, but I hated it so much. He would say, I'd hear him from the other room, and he would say, interesting. And I was like, wait, what's interesting? In the beginning, because I was like a sucker, and I didn't know that this was his code word for this sucks, or you did something wrong. Interesting. Why is this the way it is? Or where did you put my thing, or whatever? So now, he would say interesting, and he would also say with that same sarcastic tone, fascinating. He would say, wow, fascinating. And then finally, 5 years into the relationship, I was like, listen, dude, stop saying the word interesting and fascinating when you mean effed up. Stop it. You don't mean fascinating. You mean bad, wrong. You don't like it. So if you want to tell me something that you think is bad, wrong, and you don't like, you need to actually use the words that go with the thing you're trying to tell me. Because when you say something's interesting, I actually think you might mean it is interesting, and you do not. So he does not do that anymore. But can you understand how you feel like a sucker? You're like, I was like, oh, something's fascinating. What is it? And then no, he just wanted to complain, but he was masking it. Stop doing that. Talk straight. And now he has no problem being like, hey, why is this like this? I asked you not to. Can you please stop doing this? Great. I can stop doing anything if it doesn't take me all of the bandwidth of my brain to try to decode what the hell it is you're saying. Just friggin' say it. So, we're going to stop misnaming emotions, right? We're stopping because now we know being angry or homicidal is not the same as being annoyed or slightly miffed. They're different. Last thing we're going to talk about in these, the hidden boundary killers is chronic complaining about what the other person is doing, whether they're doing it to you or you're doing it to them. Here's the thing with the chronic complainer. It's such a habitual behavior that you don't even know you're doing it. It's just the way, like someone who's a nag and just keeps being like, well, I asked you, can you do this? Can you do it? Just not even giving the other person a chance to actually do the thing. It's definitely a habituated behavior, something you learned. Most people learned it, like maybe your mom acted that way or your dad acted that way. But chronic complaining, besides being bad for your IQ, there's all these things out there right now that being around a chronic complainer for as little as 30 minutes a day can make you dumber. That's an actual study, just saying. So who wants to, I feel like I'm losing brain cells by the moment with aging. I don't want to accelerate that process at all. I feel like I need all the brain cells I can get. So chronic complaining, bad for your health, as bad as secondary smoke, is what this actual study said. Blew my mind. There's a way to switch. So awareness, you need awareness to stop doing this. And then you need to switch it from, if you're going to complain, you have to attach to it what they could do next time better. Have an idea. Don't just complain, because that is just being negative. That is just killing brain cells. We're not doing that. When we say to people, when we do it in the past tense, we're like, yeah, well, you're wrong because you did this thing and that's right. And there's no way to fix it because it already happened. And there's no suggestion of what you would prefer the next time. You just want to be victimized. You just want to make them wrong and make them feel bad. And listen, for a second, 10 seconds, even maybe an hour, that is satisfying. But you're going to do the same exact thing over and over and over, and nothing's going to change because we need a proactive boundary success plan. We need to make the request like, hey, I didn't love that this happened. We've had this situation before, so I would like to make a simple request that you, and then we give a future option where there's an actual possibility of something changing. Wouldn't that be amazing? It would be, and it will change your relationship. So we've got to get out of these dysfunctional, I call them repeating boundary realities. In the course, we get into the whole breakdown of step by step, how you identify where you're doing this, and then what are the steps that you take to change it. But you have to want to change it. You have to want to change it, So, wow, that was a lot for this Terry Cole show. And last call for Boundary Bootcamp 2019. I'm just telling you. Listen, you guys, I do free stuff every week of the year. I sell programs twice a year. So right now I have 400 free videos on YouTube free. I pay to put out this podcast and I love to do it. I'm happy to do it. So as a psychotherapist, it's not my favorite thing to be like, I want you to buy this. But here's the thing. As someone who wants to step up for your best life, I'm going to say, I want you to buy this 8-week coaching course. If you're a woman and you struggle with boundaries or you feel like you don't know how to communicate effectively, then that is for you. If you're willing to change and you want to learn and you like my style, you know who I am, exactly what you see is what you get. I'm not going to be any different in the course. Go to terrycole.com/BB2019 before I close the doors tonight at midnight. Do it. It's closed for the next year. Because I want you to waltz into 2020 like, bring it, universe. I am so ready for this year, not feeling like the next 12 months is going to be exactly like the last 12 months, especially if they were not very satisfying for you. I want better. I want you to have the life that you want, but you got to be willing to change to get it. So that's my pitch for Boundary Bootcamp. I super appreciate you spending time with me. I hope that these concepts, what I gave you today, you can download I did a little cheat sheet for you so you can get these all in one spot. So all you need to do is download that. You can find it whether you're listening to the podcast on the show notes or wherever it is. And check out the course if you're interested. I would love to see you on the inside.